Thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar. It is Threat Blind Spots, Messaging Isn't Just Email, How Attackers Exploit LinkedIn, SMS, and Social Platform Vulnerabilities. We're excited to have SlashNext join us today as well for this webinar because we always like to address more than just the challenges. We like to also present what a solution looks like. We are Ridge IT Cyber. We offer managed services for IT and cybersecurity, and we protect over 500,000 customers around the world. It's also been a great honor to be the #1 ranked MSSP on the Inc. 5,000 list of America's fastest growing companies. This is our second year in a row that we've ranked the top MSSP on the list. As well, we're thrilled to be the #1 MSSP ranking on Inc. regionals as well. So we're very proud of that and appreciate our customers for helping us make those lists. And today I would like to introduce our panel of experts. First, we have our Chief Strategy Officer here at Ridge, that is Perry Schumacher. And also joining us is Stephen Kowski from SlashNext. He is Field Chief Technology Officer. And so today, for a little housekeeping before we start, we will have a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Feel free to pop your questions in the chat as we go along, and we will get to them during that piece of the presentation. We also will be drawing a winner for a free security assessment valued at $5,000. That will be also announced who that winner is at the end of the presentation. So make sure you hang around. And now I'm going to pass things off to our panel of experts so we can get started with the show.
Right. So for the security assessment, if you don't want it, please let us know. We'll make sure we give it to somebody else. In case you win, you're like, hey, I don't want you to poking holes in my security. We'll be happy to do that for somebody else. So first off, thanks a lot to everybody who's joined. I see a lot of familiar faces. Hello to all of you. A lot of our existing clients are here, and I appreciate it. As you know, our goal here on these webinars isn't try to sell you products. It's just kind of the dark web research that we're doing, innovations that we're seeing in the market, and kind of sharing that with our client base. I know there are some people here that are not clients that attended previous webinars, so thanks for attending this one. So really the topic here is things have been changing as far as the utilization of AI and attack vectors when it comes to messaging. And we've been seeing some trends that are a little bit troublesome that we think are going to hit in the next 6 to 12 months. So we want to be able to share that with you, what we're seeing that is getting prepared to hit, so you can start thinking about how you want to defend yourself against it, and look at the look at your current defenses through the new changes that are happening. So it's going to be a little academic at the beginning, which is not typical of me. So I want to apologize for that, but I tried to, water it to where it's as easily understandable as possible, in case we have some non-technical minds that enjoy these also. So first, some stats just to grab some context here. So typically, you weren't seeing a lot of phishing attacks that are coming through things like LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff like that. And in 2023, 42% of phishing attacks were attributed through social media channels. Okay, that's up from 18%. So we're starting to see a shift, right? Let me attack you where you're not defending yourself, which is their MO. I mean, that is typically what your attacker's trying to do, right? They're trying to figure out where you're not looking, and that's where they want to hit you. So we're seeing an expanding attack vector from social media, from LinkedIn, from these other channels, where we don't really have any defenses because we never really had to defend against anything coming from there. But they've figured that out. They're starting to expand their footprint in that regard, and we don't see that slowing down. We see that accelerating because there's some level of success that's being achieved through that. When it comes to LinkedIn, the primary actor there, one that you would be familiar with if you're in the cybersecurity space, is Lazarus. If you're wondering who they are, those are our wonderful North Korean neighbors. They are the ones that are, they're targeting mainly DoD defense. They've gotten into a lot of crypto mining. I guess it's hard to get paid there, so they need to find money somehow. But they are one of the principal actors using LinkedIn. The other actors are seeing what's happening. They're seeing their success rate, and that's why we're seeing the expanding footprint of other groups trying to use those channels to be able to get to you. The other piece that is kind of in its infancy when it comes to attacking businesses is SMS. So right now what we're seeing is in the SMS landscape that you're looking at, $200, $800, a couple of $1,000 trying to, fool Nancy. But the problem is that's having a really high success rate. So the other groups are looking at this and devising ways to be able to get to you through the mobile phone arena. And so these are some things that we need to keep in mind, because it's gonna come into what these new attacks are going to look like, and what we're seeing that they're developing on the adversary side to be able to exploit them. And a lot of this is dark web research, understanding what they're doing, seeing what the trends are, and showing those to you. So to understand what they're building, you have to have a basic understanding of AI. So right now, there is no threat that we are aware of that is fully automated and utilizing AI. So no one is getting into your environment, dropping AI in it, and AI is the one attacking you, right? That's not being done today. Will it be done in the next 3 to 5 years? Probably. Keep coming to these webinars. When it gets close, we're going to let you know. But so to get the basic understanding of AI, to be able to continue on with the presentation, think of AI in 2 buckets, right? You got your LLMs. That's your OpenAI, Grok, the big boys, right? You have to buy a building, build a power plant, and run the AI. Now, all of us were aware, I guess the biggest shake of the market was DeepSeek. Now, what's DeepSeek? Well, DeepSeek is an SLM, a small learning model. It's very specific in its nature. I can run it, I do run it on my PC at home with a 4080. So I don't need a building. I don't need a power plant. I can make it very specific in its goals and what it does. I can train it. So now I've moved from having this huge infrastructure to have AI and purchasing credits to running it on my 4080 at my PC at home, that when I'm not running it, I'm playing Call of Duty, right? So this is the shift of their capabilities. Before they couldn't do this, now they have the ability of running these things locally. And that's something that we need to be very aware of and very keen to watch what they're doing with it. So now when you look at AI, and I'm sorry, it says SLM plus RAG. I changed that into English, but I'll just explain it in English now. So when we first had OpenAI, when it first came out, if you asked it who the president of the United States was, it didn't know, because it couldn't reach out. It was all self-contained, right? So RAG is the ability of that AI to go out into APIs, scrape the internet, and give you a better answer, contextualize it with today's data. Every AI right now is doing that, but at first that wasn't a thing. It was all self-contained, all learned, and it gave you what it learned, but it wasn't reaching out. Both SLMs and LLMs do that. If you go to Grok and you go to DeepSeek, it's going to search the internet and tell you what it's looking at. And it's going to do its thinking and also do research on your behalf, which is why they're so useful to us right now. So that same thing can happen through SLM. But I don't have to reach out and only gather data. I can send commands. I can create accounts. I can do things with the AI now with that capability. And I can do that all off of my 4080. And that's the part that's important to remember as I'm walking through this, is I can do that from my home computer. I do not need a data center. I do not need a power plant. I don't need a footprint. I don't got to give somebody my credit card. I can be completely incognito and start developing these type of attacks, which wasn't possible before. And so we're moving, the industry is moving away from the LLMs and going into the SLMs. And you can probably see this on the business side when you're evaluating AI and how you're going to use it in your company. You're no longer going, I want OpenAI. You're like, I want this AI agent that specialized in customer service. I want this AI agent that specialized in development. We use that at Ridge. Very limited scope SLMs that are more cost effective and are better for task. And the interesting thing about using those SLMs is, we've all heard about when you start thinking, you want to do a steelman argument to make sure that your thoughts are correct. So what is the other side? How would you argue against yourself? Or you find an opponent that can do that argument so you can refine your ideas. When we start looking at SLMs, we can make SLMs do that to each other. So think about it on hey, I want to write the perfect email to trick. I'm going to pick on you, Federico, to pick on to trick Federico. So I can have two AIs get his profile and argue to come to the right conclusion about the email that would most likely fool him. Now, I know, Federico, nobody can fool you. So they'd lose, but they try really hard. So we're starting to see that happen. And the other piece, and this is going to be really hard for you to hear, but many people are unaware of just how realistic voice is getting in AI. So I'm going to play a file. Again, it's going to be muffled, so I apologize for that, but just for you to get a taste of it.
Imagine this. Someone wants to trick you into giving them your password or your credit card info. So that's what phishing is, right? Now, instead of some poorly written email with spelling mistakes, AI can craft something that looks incredibly convincing. Think about it. A message that looks like it's exactly from your bank with the right logos, the right fonts, maybe even a convincing sense of urgency. Or a text message that
So I'm going to stop it there.
Service.
You can go to Sesame AI and get a free trial and go talk to him. That's Miles. That's AI. It's scary good. It goes, it truly mimics how humans speak. So that's what's brewing. That is the capabilities that are out there right now. So how does this affect us? Well, looking at what we're seeing as far as what they're developing on the adversarial side, and you go into the dark web and get in some of these groups and see what they're doing, it feels a little bit like this picture. We're unaware of what's there. They're in stealth mode developing a new attack, and we're not necessarily all paying close attention, which is why I wanted to do this webinar in our series next to draw your attention to what's about to hit. So looking at that new infrastructure and the new way you can use AI, we've got essentially, instead of that entire data center in the middle, I'm throwing that entire data center into a chip because I can use SLM. I can chain together 3 PCs with 4080s or just buy a board where I can put 3 4080s in it and start running, complex SLMs to be able to produce an attack. In that, I can reach out to the internet into known databases and go, who is Federico? Who's his mom? Who's his dad? Who does he work for? How long has he been working there? What's his job title? Who is he most likely to interact with? So if you're a director of IT, who are the vendors that you would normally talk with? You may not know this, but I can run a search on you right now and pretty accurately tell you the software that you're currently using in your company. I can tell you if you're a Microsoft client. I can tell a lot of the things. I can tell you who your email defense provider is if you use something like Proofpoint or Mimecast, because that's well known. You're intercepting traffic. That's easy to find. So I can have the AI do all this research for me and who you have relationships with to start crafting this beautiful email that is going to come in and give you something convincing. And I don't need a data center to do it. Now I just need a couple of computers with 4080s, an SLM, and I can get this done. Now we talked about, back in 2023 when I did the other webinar about how the way that the world is structured on the other side, on the opponent side, is very similar to ours, right? So you buy CrowdStrike, but none of us are that good. Right? We buy CrowdStrike to make our life easier. We become more effective, but not because we're that effective. We're that intelligent that our brain can replace CrowdStrike's AI. It helps us with a lower level of skill set be able to use a very high level tool and makes us more effective without having that knowledge that one would have, right? To be able to be as effective as CrowdStrike. So the opponent's doing the same thing. Right? They've got the brain trust. Lockbit's an example. They find affiliates, and the affiliates, what they have to do is they have to agree to pay a percentage of the ransomware as an affiliate, and they get a software package that will generate software for them that will do the attack. So you're not looking at this really highly sophisticated technical person attacking you. You're looking at mid-level hackers or low-level hackers being able to have access to affiliate programs that do most of the hard work, and then they spam everybody in the world and try to get into the low-hanging fruit where the defenses are weak. So that's what they do. So now this is being developed, and the reason that I want to call attention to it is that because of their affiliate structure, when this hits, it's going to hit big across the board. See, if CrowdStrike releases a new functionality, this is the conversation. A salesperson is going to call you and you're going to say, yes, we could do this for you for another $299 a month. And then you're going to go, and if you like it, you're going to talk to somebody, you're going to try to get budget, and there's this whole process to get this new functionality. Well, when you're an affiliate and what you do is you just pump money up top. When that new functionality gets enabled, it's across the board, right? They're going to get their money. They're not trying to upsell them on a new package of affiliates. It's simply, you have Lockbit. Now Lockbit has this new capability. Use it. So when it hits, it's going to hit fast and it's going to hit hard. And that's why I wanted to have this webinar, because we're seeing tremendous progress. And this might be the first fully automated AI generated attack that we're going to suffer as a defender. And it's very highly likely this will be the first version of it that we're going to see. I don't need a human. I just need to train the SLMs and it will do all of the work for me and get me to where I want to go. So another thing I want to call out, just again, understanding the landscape and how all this works, and we're going to get into some more details as we go along. So in 2022, the biggest group that was out there was called Conti. Okay, these guys were ransomwaring everybody, living high off the hog, making millions and millions of dollars. 2022, towards the middle, they got dismantled. Right. So our law enforcement agencies across the world figured out who they were and took them down. Well, then that meant Lockbit became the new one. 2023 was their party year. Lockbit hit everybody. And Lockbit actually has morals. Believe it or not. If you are an affiliate in ransomware a hospital, you get kicked out. They will not cause death. They have lines. But they became the most popular one and one of the most effective ones with the most amount of attacks, all their affiliates. And you can see they were such a problem that they were given the U.S. government was given a $15 million award if you could just find a guy. It took them a year. 15 million. Took them a year to find a guy. And so now that guy's in a little bit of trouble. Lockbit is probably going to be dismantled over time. But what we have to understand is this is not the first time that's happened, right? They don't die, they just morph. So now they're not Lockbit. Okay, so now they're New Vegas. That's the new one, right? So they're just moving affiliate programs, and you're getting into to that exact same problem, but just with a new group. So this is the landscape we're dealing with. This is kind of the attack that we're expecting to see in the next 6 to 12 months come out of stealth mode and be prime time for you. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to SlashNext, who really kind of specializes in this kind of stuff. And he's going to walk you through what it looks like without the AI. And we can imagine what this is going to be when we start automating all of these pieces. So, Stephen,
Hey,
I'm done. I'll let you take over.
Yeah, appreciate that, Perry. Hopefully everybody can see my slides now. But yeah, what you're describing, this new change in AI, whether it's from a language perspective, from agentic AI, we're seeing a lot more creativity because we're no longer wasting our time as an attacker trying to just translate language from Russian to English or North Korean to English, right? So we're seeing a real explosion in kind of creativity in the attacks that we see. So we are an anti-phishing platform. And if everyone notices, I didn't say email there. I said an anti-phishing platform because phishing is no longer an email-only problem. It is now shifted to, as Perry was alluding to, I got multiple different people reaching out to me with on LinkedIn this weekend. All their accounts are now gone, right? You're getting hit with Operation Dream Job was a classic example of that. But you're seeing not only these new areas that they're starting at, but different techniques. The most interesting one I've seen probably in the last 6 to 8 months has been from a group called Black Basta. They're typically a ransomware group, and now they've decided to kind of innovate in how they get that ransomware on your computer. And they used to use email as kind of a direct path, but we'll see as I walk through it how they're using other multi-channel kind of approaches to get these things on your devices. And then I'll also talk about some of the other techniques that we see about how they break off the email security tools that other people are using today. BEC and social engineering text-based emails certainly are out there, but these BECs started being tracked by the FBI since 2013. So it's certainly part of it, but it has changed and morphed into becoming one piece of a much larger puzzle that is becoming multi-channel in nature and being enabled by AI. So in this case with Black Basta, they're using email, but none of the emails are phishing emails. They use agentic AI to sign you up for hundreds of different services, newsletters, and so you get a ton of confirmations. Hey, thank you for registering for this service or that service, a bunch of free areas, and you get that steadily. And it ranges from 30 to 90 minutes. We've seen some cases where it's up to 2 hours where they're just hitting you with these subscriptions. And your spam filters that are out there today, the conventional ones, don't see this as traditional spam because there is no offer. It is a confirmation thank you kind of message. So it doesn't meet the normal standard of what spam is. At that point, you're going to have really just a smoke screen coming through. And you're going to have it'll move on to the second phase with the social engineering because their ultimate goal is to get their ransomware software on your users' machines. So that's where they started moving towards Teams. I don't know how many people are still using Teams. Microsoft issued an update to specifically address this, some guidance to admins where you wouldn't allow external initiation of conversations, right? So I'm hoping that lots of people have seen that and have already made that adjustment. It was because of this type of campaign. They would come in and message people from Teams, hey, we see you having an email problem. We're from your company X's IT department. We're here to help. And if you just download this file and run it, it'll cure what ails you. So that was one variant of it. The other variant of it that we saw, and luckily we cut the legs out from underneath that. We'll talk about that in a second. But spoofing phone numbers, they would find the building number or find the company number and then use those kind of audio deepfakes to impersonate a member of IT. Hey, I'm Joe from IT support. We see you're having an email problem. We're trying to help you here. Download that file, and then unfortunately, it's really not. It's game over there once they have the local device. And then it's up to your endpoint controls. Maybe they stop it, maybe they don't. So there's a variety of different kind of ways. And I imagine there are copycats now. We're seeing this technique adopted more and more and more. But they're using various pieces of AI while we're phishing people, we're doing it in a unique and novel way. We're using email, but we're not sending phishing emails. We're still trying to get access to people's credentials or people's machines. And so it checks a lot of the boxes, but the way in which they get from A to B is very different than typical. In our case, when you have this problem, it kind of falls apart if you have something in the background pulling out all these messages, part of our spam filter. So our natural language machine learning, we do two different things. Number one, we're doing ML-based analysis on these messages, but then a rate analysis as well. The frequency of these messages, how often are they coming? From a social perspective, how normal is it for you to massively sign up for a whole bunch of new services and things over a sustained period, like an hour? If you see these attacks live, there's no chance that you could fill out this many forms this quickly. So this is part of the solution. There's a couple different approaches we have. I'm not going to, reveal all the secret sauce, but this exactly with the phone number being spoofed. It was a company in the Midwest that's one of our clients, and they called this person. They impersonated the IT member, and hey, I'm here to help you. And well, you're having an email problem. The person goes, yeah, there's no email problem. I'm not sure what you're talking about. And kind of got confused and hung up. So it really kind of falls apart if they can't create this psychological smokescreen of all this subscription bombing, for lack of a better term. So that's one of the unique ways that we're seeing phishing and email involved with phishing kind of evolve and change and grow over time. But there's a variety of other kind of tactics, and I just wanted to briefly go over some of these, right? So just to level set here, an attacker traditionally has a couple different email payload options. So they have, text, that's your BEC. Social engineering, may not have a payload at all. I would call that kind of a malicious intent based email. I have bad intent, but I don't have anything in it. And then you have a lot of other malicious content. So attachments, links, images that can be malicious payloads. And historically, that would be the kind of endpoint. We didn't need to go to a lot of extra trouble. We could get people just purely on the malicious attachment with a virus in it or a malicious link. It would navigate you straight there. But as companies have started to layer on other pieces of security, network layer defenses, endpoint related defenses, and even email related defensive, we've had to become more complex and ornate with how we layer these things, because what we're trying to do is shake off these security tools and ultimately still deliver the user to that destination landing page. So we see a lot of shifting of channels. The classic one that we saw early on within text was, hey, I have something urgent, right? It comes from a CEO or someone like this. Send me your number right away, your phone number. I have an urgent task I need to discuss. Don't let other people know. It's a surprise for the office. There's 100 different variations that I've seen, and we've seen in SlashNext. That now I have you on a mobile phone. I'm outside of your defense perimeter, right? I'm into more vulnerable attack surface. So likely you don't have a lot of controls. In some cases, many companies don't have any controls really around the mobile because it's a BYOD device or what have you. So that one is been around for a little bit, and maybe some of you've seen it. Some of the other ones that we've seen more often and becoming more fast and furious has been from the malicious content. And so, for example, an attachment, I'm going to have in there, I'm going to have the potential to put an image. Maybe it's a link that I'm going to move you to the browser. Maybe it's a QR code that I want you to pick up your phone. Either way, I want to move you to some other location where I hope that you have weaker defenses. I'm going to use cloud app abuse and do a channel shift to the browser typically. So I might send you a spoof of DocuSign, but the more common one that we've seen far lately is actually using DocuSign, using Google Drive, using these collaboration platforms, because we'll just launch these things at scale. And yeah, eventually Microsoft, Google, DocuSign, they'll all catch up to us and kind of remove these things and pull them down. But we're in a speed game. We only need a couple minutes, right? And we're betting that we can do this and get enough people, and that's more than enough. So you have people shifting to the cloud apps. And then along the way, you have other kind of techniques that try to shake people off as well. So redirectors are extremely common. And there can be an entire redirect chain that happens. So I'm going to send you to one link, and then I'm going to redirect you to 3 or 4 others. This becomes a problem also with the am I a human obfuscation. Cloudflare is a favorite. Their free tier now has become the kind of number one option for attackers and most of these phishing kits. So those types of tools, you have to verify you're a human, and now all of a sudden my security solution can't necessarily get past that. That's something that we get beyond and are able to move around those types of am I a human tests. So you have a variety of different techniques that are out there. And so and I'll just give a couple examples here in this next slide of how we chain these types of things together. So these aren't an exhaustive list. There's some that I've left out just to spare everybody and hopefully to save a little time for questions here. But things like text, I'm nesting text into an image and then sending that as an email. And so if your BEC based email security only solution, if it doesn't have the ability to use computer vision to analyze the text within the image, I'm going to miss it, right? And then this person's going to respond, and now I have them back and forth in a conversation. But example one here is we start off with that attachment. Nested within that attachment is a malicious link. That link is going to send us to a redirector. That redirector also is going to do a couple different things. It could detect, let's say like Proofpoint or Mimecast. Their infrastructure has not changed in a lot of years. It's fairly well known by these attackers. So they detect it and they redirect it to a Wikipedia page, or they do it randomly. I've seen that happen before, where just time of day, they use a variety of different browser fingerprinting techniques to do detection during these redirectors as well. So they're going to move different people around to different places depending on who they think they are. Then they might deliver you to an am I human obfuscation, right? That could be Google, that could be Cloudflare. Then I might redirect you to some other thing. And remember, each one of these redirector kind of obfuscations, that could be 5 or 6 different hops before it actually goes to where the attacker wants you. So just because there's one icon, don't think that that's the only thing that's going on here. And then finally, you're going to get to the destination. So you can see I'm trying to shake off all these different security tools, right? Another one is that cloud app abuse one that I talked to you about. I'm logged in as a DocuSign. So the phishing email is from DocuSign. 100%. It is a legitimate DocuSign email. It comes from their sending servers. It is their templates. The problem is the attackers are abusing their API and they send it to you. You go to that page as a user because we can't block that, or many businesses won't block that because they'll have outrage for business continuity. You end up going there, and now within the DocuSign, there's now another different link, and that link sends you somewhere else, and on, right? So now you're in that redirection loop. Now you're getting different other obfuscation techniques. Maybe there's an ActiveX control sometimes that is sideloading some other resources, so the page can't be read very easily. There's a variety of different kind of techniques on how they are shifting channels and obfuscating these attacks. So there's a phishing attack chain within an overall kind of larger attack chain that we see and stop because we're not purely focused on email alone. And I'll talk a little bit how we do that a little later. And then the final one, malicious email with an attachment. I want to get you off of the computer altogether. I want to get you to a mobile phone. Maybe I throw some redirects at you, and now I have you over here at your destination. Really not a lot of security controls on these examples. So I'm hoping that this will help kind of give you an idea about how we're using email, but it's only the very, very tip of the iceberg. And we've done it this way so that common email security solutions aren't able to detect it. And if they are able to detect it, potentially they can't then follow you to something they can't detect, right? DocuSign server, DocuSign email with a legitimate link coming from their servers, very, very hard for anything to know whether or not that is good or bad. Only once you follow the path to the chain like we do, will you be able to find out whether or not that's malicious or not. All right, so Perry, let me toss it back to you.
Beautiful. And this is part of the reason I wanted to bring this up, especially to our client base, is there's something we've been looking at over the last about 4 months where we've been seeing certain activities happening. Those of you who work for us know that we've got accounts in places where we get to see certain things, and it's just been something that's been bothering us, and we see it getting closer and closer to fruition. And this is why I think it's a good time I think you're probably 6 to 12 months away before you actually start seeing this really hit you. So there's some questions you need to be asking today. We all have procurement processes. We all have to convince bosses of what we need to do. So I think now's a good time to start thinking about these things and how they may or may not affect you, and some questions you need to ask, and see that you have satisfactory answers to. So first off is, okay, so we're looking at social media. They're trying to fish me through there. Lazarus is having a party. What do I have? How exactly do I stop that? And that's a question that a security team needs to take time to fully answer. And you can have a satisfactory answer. I'm not saying you don't have one. I'm just saying this is a question that you need to start considering, because this is going to start to really matter very soon. Second thing is SMS. What am I doing that can protect me from there? How am I addressing that issue? How am I addressing the redirects that are occurring that he mentioned? How am I doing that from the cell phone layer? And I'll tell you, most people are not ready. And we're not ready for a number of reasons. First, mobile phones are hard. This is a problem. We all know it. We live it, right? But we need to start answering that question, because that's a vector that's starting to get more and more exploited. The other question is, what is the back end of my back end? Are they using large language models? Are they moving to the SLM model to where they're doing specific AIs for specific tasks, or is it all of this just this one big AI? We know from an industry standpoint, non-security related, just day-to-day business, we're moving away from that. We're going into distributed AI, basically. We're going in the direction of SLMs. There's a reason that we're doing that from a business standpoint. There's a reason that we need to be doing this from a security standpoint. So we need to start asking questions of our vendors. What does that look like for you? What's your architecture and where are you going? Why are you doing it that way? Because to be able to properly defend against these attacks, we need better security. And to get better security, we need to know that they're moving or are in a model that is proving itself to be far more effective over time than the current model that we're using. And the other thing just to remember, and as a reminder to everybody, we don't have browsers anymore. We have operating systems that we use to navigate the internet. I know some of you know me, and I say this a lot, but I just think it gets lost in the sauce that every browser that we're using is an operating system. It's not just a browser. It's not what it used to be in the 90s, and my gray hair showing, where all it could do is load a web page. Our browsers can run full-blown programs, and that makes them very susceptible to hijacking. So we need to make sure that we know what code is running on there when we're loading web pages. So to break this down into to help with the answers, because I'm sure you didn't sign up to this to hear me tell you all the problems that you might have and hang up the phone on you. So I'm going to help you a little bit towards what we should be looking for here. You'll see a lot of overlap. All of us know defense in layers, defense in depth. That's why you're going to see overlap. You need some of these tools equally effective in multiple channels to be able to defend. This is ideal. You may not have this, you may not ever have this, but just going through the questions and what we need to be looking for on each side. So we're looking on LinkedIn and Facebook and the social media part. One of them is, okay, sandboxing. And let's throw DocuSign up there, because he made a great example with DocuSign. Many of you may be buying Zscaler from us, and then many of you may have sandboxing in Zscaler. I can tell you, because of business operations, the vast majority of people do not sandbox DocuSign. They're like, no, I've got to run my business. I need to be able to see my DocuSigns. I'm not going to sandbox that. So we've opened a security flaw that is currently being drastically exploited. And the business may not acquiesce to you sandboxing it. So how else can we defend against it? But everything else that we can, we need to be sandboxing it. We need things that look at writing styles. We need things that can read QR codes. We need things that read graphics that are in, text that are in graphics. We need things that understand impersonations. It's not your CEO. We need things that look at BEC and generative AI at the browser level if we can. Those solutions are not really out there, but these are things that we need to be looking to do. When it comes to your cell phone, you've got the low-hanging fruit, old school hashes. You are evil. You don't get to be here. But we also need the other parts need to be in there too from an SMS level. Are they impersonating the CEO and need me to go buy Google Play cards? I know that's a silly example, but at Ridge, it's funny because that happens to every new employee. You change your title to working at Ridge, and you'll get you can do that right now. You'll get some spam if you say you work at Ridge IT. So we see it on a day-to-day basis. What are we doing to make sure that on the mobile phone we're protected? When they click on the link, that we're protected. Some of you have tried to put Zscaler on your cell phone and have suffered the consequences of SSL pinning. So there are solutions that are inadequate, but there are other solutions out there that can catch it at the browser level, that will look at the text level and give you better security on your mobile phones. That's something that we need to look into. It's a sore spot for most security teams for a very long time. It hasn't been extremely exploited, but we're seeing that starting to take place, right? And now most of it's still $800 to $1,000 and they're trying to fool Nancy. But as they see that success, they start looking at how they exploit it because they know that is where our defense is weak. So when you start looking at beefing that up. When it comes to the internet, this part is what really got me thinking. Now, I'm a big proponent of SASE, and those of you who know me know that I'm a big proponent of SASE. However, this has really exposed some flaws that we need to address. So SASE is going to do all SASE will do old school Cisco umbrella, right? Evil site, don't load. I know it's bad. All SASE is going to block brand new created sites because 90% of them are malicious. Most SASE is going to do SSL inspection. So on those fronts, I think if you're in a SASE solution, those you're kind of covered. But you know where you're not covered? When that page loads, who's reading that code? And that's the part that's been bothering me. And that's why I keep on saying our browser is an operating system. We may see the traffic back and forth, but we don't necessarily analyze the code on load. And we should be, right? And blocking it and stopping it at that point. So that's a gap that I think that most people have, that we need to start looking at solutions that will do that. And there are some, and SlashNext is one of them, which is why I drug Stephen here on this call. And AI scanning for traffic signatures is something, again, most SASEs will do. So there's one hole that I think is very gaping that we need to address, and that's the one where we're really looking on load of that web page. What is it really doing to us at the time that the web page is loading, not after, not just looking at the traffic. So an email, the one thing I want to call out, most of us do most of this. So you got Mimecast, you got Proofpoint. We were a big Proofpoint shop, and I'm not degrading Proofpoint, by the way. I don't want to give the impression that I don't like Proofpoint. I like Proofpoint, but there's a deficiency. How am I using AI to learn your behavior if I am not accessing all of your behavior? How do I know what is not within a good state, what's within standard deviations and not, if I'm not combing through the last 6, 8, 10 months of your email, understanding your writing style and who you communicate with? And if all I'm doing is intercepting in the middle, how am I learning all of that from day one? I'm not. And so that's one thing. Another thing that kind of raised red flags for me, and this was about a year ago, and I didn't really address it because I didn't think it was that important of a problem. It was a problem, but just not in my top tier of things that I think need to be addressed. But as I'm seeing the new attacks take place, the behavior analytics on your email box are becoming way more important today. Understanding your writing style, understanding the writing style of those who speak to you, looking at that, being able to detect generative AI emails that are getting through. This is becoming more and more important as time is moving on. So those are the questions. Here are some of the answers. Some of them you probably already have answered, but we need to work through this as security professionals and make sure that we're not caught with our proverbial pants down when this starts really taking off. Again, my estimate is the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to start seeing this add up. And I just want to reiterate the affiliate program model. It's not going to be one guy. New Vegas has it. Everybody who's affiliate of New Vegas is going to have it. And they're going to start using it right away. So it's kind of going to be a lull until they get out of stealth mode, and there's going to be a spike. And that's what I'm expecting to see in 6 to 12 months is that big spike hit. And then next year, we'll have a webinar where we dissect that spike. So with that, I'm going to give Stephen, I'm going to give you some time to just kind of show a little bit of SlashNext, so people get an idea of what all you guys actually do on the back end that helps some of this. Now, there's no solution that fixes it all. It fixes all of this, guys. It's layers and things like that. But they do some interesting things that answer some of these questions. So I want to give him an opportunity to answer some of that for you and show you kind of how they do it. Then we're going to open up for questions and feel free to start flooding the questions now, and we'll stay as long as it takes to answer everything that you may want to ask.
All right. I appreciate that, Perry. I know we're a little kind of tight on time here, so I'm going to move through this a little quicker than I normally would. And I'm going to skip my mobile kind of demo. You see Google Voice in the background there, but when we talk about some of the machine learning and being able to do that rate analysis with things like Black Basta or BEC invoice fraud, right? Just want to touch on that really quickly before we do the kind of multi-channel, deeper layer stuff, which is we're looking at machine learning, language identification, understanding what normal language patterns look like, understanding the deviations, having the machine learning identify certain categories of information, the intents and motives, the emotions that are being invoked. We're looking at static analysis of the message itself, and then also the sender relationship analysis, understanding the sender and recipient relationship. Does it make sense that you are signing up for all these newsletters? Is that typical for you? Is your relationship with all these different companies, is that strange behavior, right? Doing this analysis. And then between those two layers, you're going to find a lot of that. But I think also what you're going to find out there is a lot of scoring of this likeliness of phishing. I used to work for a vendor that did that as well. And there's not a definitive answer of whether or not it's phishing. That's where generative AI also comes into play for us on this type of attack, where we use our synthetic clones to create alternative data sets to do those comparisons. If we're ever on the fence and we need to make a definitive decision, we use these clones and analyze the natural language processing, social graph information, synthetic clones, among other things, in this kind of malicious text-based attack where there's no payload to make a definitive decision. Okay. The other pieces of this, shifting to that kind of malicious content side of the house here, I told you that they can put the QR code directly into the attack, right? We can go in deep on and browse to that, but we also can use the context within this other obfuscation technique where I was talking about text being used in a combination, right? So this is an obfuscation technique you're staring at, and you may not recognize it immediately, right? Because there is no text on here. This is a screenshot, right? So we use natural language processing and computer vision not only to follow the QR code, but also to identify and analyze this language here. If it's a link, whether it's in a document, it's nested there, or it's multi-nested in there, a QR code, something like that, we're going to identify that, open it up, and access it and try to follow it to its destination despite all the redirectors upstream in our stealth browser cloud. That allows us also to go deep into the URL analysis, look at every web request, certificates, the document object model. If there was a redirect chain where it was bouncing you around the internet to the various locations, we would have that here as well. This is kind of a dynamic menu on the left-hand side. The other piece of this I talked about was that cloud app abuse, right? What happens when you get the message, the link through LinkedIn, you get it from another location, or you get that message from DocuSign itself that is a legitimate one. That's where we have other layers, as Perry was alluding to, like our browser extension, that's going to load and identify the page itself, not just the URL, right? We're not waiting around for someone to tell me, hey, this URL, it looks bad and I need to wait around for a signature. I'm going to live and analyze. So if I have an offline file or even an offline page, I'm going to select this link, a very poor impersonation of DocuSign is going to load. And just that fast, you're going to see this customizable page load. If you want to see the preview of it, if it was in our threat analysis cloud, you would see it here. Here, this was local at a local file and local page all on my machine. So that's why you don't see that preview. So a couple different layers, but then also that's our bread and butter, is detecting these things live on the internet. So if I go into our threat intelligence layer and identify things like DocuSign, this is the one that I picked out before this call here. So I have this, you see the message itself and you receive the document. And then in this yellow, I see a lot of these, so I know this. In this yellow is another link to another page that bounces you out of DocuSign. So we do see this, and even though it's legitimate infrastructure, because we are able to scan these pages and operate as human beings through that browser, it's a completely custom fork of the entire Chromium project built from the ground up that we host in our cloud. We're able to get past those Cloudflare obfuscations, get past those redirectors, and get to the destination page. And what that results in is a 24 to 48 hour advantage. This link before this call threw it into VirusTotal. Nobody is flagging this as malicious. You've got one that maybe says it's suspicious. Everybody else is calling it safe, or they're not rating it at all. So we're trying to do this in email, at the browser for browser messaging phishing, and then on the mobile device. So a couple different layers. But with that, I know that was very fast. I'm sorry. I want to leave a few minutes for questions. But if it's interesting, we can always deep dive later on and go a little slower through all of it. All right.
All right. So I see the first question here from Corey, and that's a great question, because that's a layered question, right? So what he's asking is, what's the best way to protect my environment when my users get to go to Gmail and Yahoo and access all their personal stuff? So there's a couple of layers to that. So one is SASE firewall level. So ask yourself the question, what do they need to have access to, why, and what do they need to do when they have access to it? So a typical scenario would be, I'll let you read, I'll let you send, but I won't let you attach anything. Right. And you can do that in most more advanced firewalls or SASE configurations. You go, okay, you can read your email, you can respond to it, but you can't attach, or I can say you can read, but you can't attach, or I can just flat out block it. Right. So I've got multiple options on layer one. Layer two is like, okay, now they have access, but they're getting phished. And now they're going to click on a link and they're going to go somewhere I don't want them to go. And so now my attack vector has shifted. So clicked on that. Now I'm looking at my internet traffic. There you've got multiple layers. So one is, again, your firewall, Zscaler, SASE, Netscope, whatever you're using. So that theoretically is supposed to have that, you have your base umbrella effect, right? Blacklist all the things that we suspect is bad. And then you have certain solutions that are a little bit more advanced, like if it's taking you somewhere really bad and it analyzes the traffic, which means you're doing SSL inspection. If you're not analyzing the traffic. You're just looking at a header and letting it through. So if you're doing SSL inspection, some of those tools, especially the SASE ones, can analyze the type of traffic going back and forth and see if it's an exploit and stop it there. Then you have the other piece, which is what Stephen was showing, and the part that's been irking me. And they have a solution for my problem, which is, again, part of the reason that he's here, is what about on load? What if I don't catch the type of traffic? Why am I not looking at the code that this thing is running when it's loading? That's what we do at our endpoint. When you detonate, right? We do the, are you a bad thing? But when you detonate, we observe your behavior and then we stop you. Well, my browser's an operating system. Why am I not applying the same principles? And that's a question that's been bothering me. And that's kind of what they do. It's not exactly the same, but also the browser isn't exactly the same, but it's very similar. So why don't we apply those same principles? So I've got three layers there pretty easily where I can detect and stop those threats. So I want to position myself in those three layers I can, so I have a better opportunity of stopping an attack that's getting in. Does that answer your question? And what other questions do you guys have? Anything that stood out to you, or questions that you may be thinking about that you want answered before we do giveaways?
Oh, a couple more here.
So we're not going to say your name because you're asking for a friend. Stephen, that's a bit more technical. Um, so do you want to handle that? I can tickle it, but I think that's going to get a little bit more dirty than I'm willing to dig.
It's in a plain text read. All users on the machine asking for a friend. I guess I'm a little confused about the use case here. They're storing it in a plain text file readable by all users on the machine. And when you say LOB, is that a line of business application? I'm not familiar with this particular acronym in this context. Okay. Um, so this is more of a, if it was, we're not focused in on storing secrets from a SlashNext perspective. That would likely be more of Ridge and one of their other partners. We're laser focused on the problem of phishing. Now, if they're storing malicious content in that local file, right? That's something that our browser extension would mitigate. That is something that we would block when it tried to get to the internet and get to that malicious destination page. I just want to make sure that I'm not telling somebody something that we don't actually do.
Well, so I'll take a little bit of a shot at this for you. So we've had other clients that are. So normally when I see something like this, it's because you're using APIs and there's a homegrown application that was developed at some point that stored credentials and works in a certain way. So obviously one of the things is re-architecting the way the thing works. Is a method. The other one is encryption, and getting into some kind of user database. So you can, without knowing the details, but we can take this offline later, and then you just go through the scenario. But I'm going to make up a generalized scenario, and maybe this will help you. So when you look at something, so these are user credentials that are being accessed to use something. So we need to be able to store those in a place that is actually encrypted, where it's not easy to be found. Maybe it doesn't integrate directly into any IDP that you're currently using, which is why you have this problem. What we can do is we can create a user store for it to access. It maybe is not in the IDP that they can't integrate with, but then you grab that just plain database that's encrypted and you store that data into something like Okta. Because Okta will accept a flat file, an encrypted flat file as a store of user information, to be able to then leverage their tech to secure your environment, right? So, but I'd really have to dig in deep into what that architecture is, and then see how we can do that. But I've faced that with, normally it's older software that was, Joey, who was 60 and retired, built it, and we're still using it, and we need to be able to secure it. And I have a client right now that I'm having that discussion with, old APIs basically. All right, good. So I was close on my guess. Thank you. Gray hair matters. So what other questions might we have? And again, you can ask us anything. We're here to provide value. That's our goal. What questions might you have that we could answer and be useful to you? Or are there more and I'm not seeing them? Okay. All right. Well, if that's it, then what we'll do is we'll go to the drawings. Lee, I want to make sure we did this at the end of the webinar before it ended, to make sure that we celebrated together.
Yep, here we go. This will be the winner of the free security assessment valued at $5,000. All right, and that winner is Gavin W. So congratulations, and we will be in contact so we can get that scheduled for you. All right. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate you joining us today. We will follow up with another webinar next month. That one will be on the topic of zero trust, and we will provide information for you as we get closer to the event. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Take care.
Bye.